Today concludes a year-long journey to identify the most innovative ideas to reduce pollution in Delhi. We have combed through nearly 250 creative and passionate proposals from students, researchers, entrepreneurs, non-profit and for-profit organizations, and citizens across India and around the world. We thank all of those who submitted proposals to us. We had to make some tough decisions to get us here today. Of course, today marks an end as we announce the winners of the challenge, but it also marks a beginning. From here, we look forward to working with our partners in the Delhi government and our fellow researchers at University of Chicago, Urban Labs, and Energy Policy Institute to put these ideas to work as pilot projects. And we hope they will be scaled up here in Delhi and perhaps even beyond. Thank you to all of you for being here today, for your continued support and involvement. We hope we will continue to be engaged as we move forward to the next phase of this journey. With that, I'd like to introduce Michael Kulma, the Associate Vice President for Global Engagement at the University of Chicago, to say a few words. Michael is part of senior leadership at the university, working to develop and implement the university's global engagement plans and policies around the world. Previously, he was the Executive Director of Global Leadership Initiatives at the Asia Society, where he directed the society's major leadership initiatives. We are fortunate to have Michael with us today from Chicago. Michael, thank you for being here.
It's such a historic collaboration and truly innovative projects. For those visiting us here at the Center for the first time, the Center in Delhi provides a base for research and dialogue among scholars from the university, across India, and around the world. The Center builds on a rich history of intellectual collaboration between the university and India and serves as a working space for faculty and a gathering place for students and alumni across all disciplines. Let me first echo Anna's thanks by thanking the Dialogue and Development Commission of Delhi, our partner in this challenge. Today, of course, wouldn't have been possible without those joint efforts. I'm looking forward to hearing who the winners will be and all about their projects. As Anna also suggests, today marks the end of the crowdsourcing part of the competition, but it also marks a beginning of the next phase. The evidence-based approach that we'll be undertaking with the winners is one we know well at the university, so it should be no surprise that it forms the basis of the new center we launched in June in partnership with the Tata Trusts. This new center, the Tata Center for Development, will tackle not just energy and environmental issues, but also important issues related to health, water, and sanitation. All of the research happening at the Tata Center for Development, including the winning projects we are celebrating here today, will be evidence-based, integrated research dedicated to achieving high-impact outcomes for the benefit of Indian society. We thank the Tata Trust for understanding the deep potential in this approach and for supporting this innovative challenge and all the work underway at the Tata Center for Development. Of course, all of this work is in line with the mission of the university, where we have a little saying that drives our work: inquiry and impact, trying to make a real difference in the world. That's why we're here today, and that's what we hope to accomplish with these projects in the months and the years ahead. But first, we celebrate today. And for that, I'd like to turn to our very special guest, the Honorable Deputy Chief Shri Manish Sisodia, who will say a few words and announce the winners. Deputy Chief Minister Shri knows all too well the challenges Delhi faces with extreme pollution, challenges these projects will aim to address. An avid reformer dedicated to a just and fair society, Deputy Chief Minister Shri has championed the right to information, a corrupt-free society, and revolutionary changes in the education system here in India. He, of course, now adds the environment to his championed causes. Deputy Chief Minister Shri, we're honored to have you here, and I'd like to invite you to the podium.
So I'm pleased to be here today to announce the winners of the year-long, should I say, competition or process or exercise, but it was wonderful. And I'm I keep talking when I go to my colleges, universities, that there should be a connecting bridge between the classroom and colony. And when I say colony, means colony where I live, where the student lives. So there should be a big connect. And today, let us accept that there is a big gap, there is a big disconnect. Whatever we read in our books, whatever we learn in our libraries or laboratories or research centers, and whatever we need in our colonies where we live, there are two different worlds. I mean, there is a big disconnect. My colony needs something else, and I'm doing research on something else. Or whatever I'm doing research is maybe. So I'm glad that Chicago University took initiative to be a part of this. For me, it's not merely a one campaign or one exercise. I wish that all the top universities of Delhi, top institutions of Delhi, will be able to replicate this or at least learn from this exercise and will be able to do more, because the data I got in a casual discussion from Mr. Santosh that almost 250 people applied for it. So the winners are coming out of the 250 people who actually wanted to do something, who actually wanted to connect their knowledge and experience with the society. But there are thousands and thousands of students who are working daily, be it IIT, triple ITD, DTU, or maybe these are just technical things, JNU for sociology, DU for different aspects. If all these students are working on these patterns, it's a big dream that all the knowledge that we are trying to evolve inside the classrooms and labs will come to the colonies, will come to the society, and will get benefit out of it. So I'm happy to be here, and as Anna said, that this is not end. This is a beginning. Rather, I'll say this is a comma. There is no full stop in this. So this is the first comma. We are having it. After this, we'll start our work, the learning, the ideas that have emerged from this exercise. Delhi government is committed to use those ideas, and not only those ideas, evolve those ideas with multiple dimensions so that we can solve the problems of Delhi. We can try to utilize this knowledge, this energy for the benefit of people of Delhi. So I am grateful, and I request Anna to announce the winners. Where is she? Anna, yeah, she's there. So I look forward to start working on those ideas from Delhi government and of course the team working on that. Thank you very much.
We have 3 winning teams, and in no particular order, I would first like to announce the winning team of Chakra Innovation Private Limited.
There's no 1, 2, 3.
There's no 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. All the best.
So Chakra's project will employ a device which, when coupled with the exhaust pipe of diesel engines, absorbs over 70% of the particulate matter, thereby improving Delhi's air quality. The technology can then convert this captured particulate matter into black ink and paints.
So this should not be limited to diesel engine only. I mean, of course, the routine diesel engine that we install in our factories or somewhere, or maybe houses or other buildings, it should be installed or maybe devised for buses and cars also. That will help Delhi a lot. And I hope we'll do it one.
Our next winning team is a joint team of Climate Foundation and Tide technocrats.
Thank you for thinking. Yes, that's important.
So the winning team of Climate Foundation and Tide Technocrats will employ biochar reactors that turn rice straw into biochar to enrich agricultural soil and prevent the heavy air pollution in Delhi from rice straw burning.
Yeah, all of us are, we all keep talking about crop burning in neighboring states and then facing pollution in Delhi. So I hope this will, I mean, of course, this will require a lot of manpower, back-end work, but if we can work on this and, implement it, that will solve a lot of problems.
Well, our final winning team is Mahila Housing Seva Trust. Will deploy cool roofing solutions in Delhi slums to bring down indoor temperatures and allow the slum dwellers to conserve energy, improve their productivity and quality of life. Thank you to all the winners for submitting such promising proposals. I'm so looking forward to working with you on these projects. Also, again, a special thanks to Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, Sir, for being with us here and giving these awards to the winners. It would be a big encouragement to them. Thanks. Before we move on to our engaging panel, I'd like to give each of the winners a brief moment to tell us at a high level about their projects and the impact they could have. You will get to hear more details during the panel discussion. With that, I would like to invite Kushagra Srivastav from Chakra Innovation.
The problem that we have set out to solve is the one that each of us breathes every second of the day, the problem of air pollution. We have developed a technology which can be coupled with the exhaust of any internal combustion engine. Once coupled with the exhaust, it absorbs the particulate matter coming out of the exhaust. Later, we chemically treat this particulate matter and convert it into inks and paints. Hence, something which was earlier harmful to the humankind becomes useful. Under the grant, we'll be installing these devices on 25 kVA diesel generators spread across Delhi. And we look forward to working with University of Chicago and Delhi government to help solve Delhi's air pollution problem. Thank you.
But from Mahila Housing Seva Trust to talk about their project.
We at the MHT work with the poor women in informal sector, trying to improve their habitat, work-related environment, because we believe that for poor women in the informal sector, their housing is their productive asset. So they don't have separate go-downs or workplaces, but they use their houses as go-downs as their workplaces. And access to light, ventilation, and efficient energy is critical to improving their quality of life and their economic productivity, especially women who use their house as workplace. Unfortunately, these women only have illegal and irregular access to electricity, poor light and ventilation, which makes them dependent on electrical lighting and cooling devices which are inefficient. In summers, their electricity bills can go as high as rupees 3,000 a month by using inefficient cooling devices. So our project will actually use multiple solutions like roof ventilators, modular rooftop solutions, thermocol ceilings, and solar reflective paints in 3 slum settlements of Delhi to reduce home temperatures and improve ventilation. We have successfully installed these technologies in Ahmedabad and in Bhopal, and we would now like to replicate it in Delhi. We are specifically also going to work on understanding the impact of solar reflective paints on reducing internal temperatures, and thereby improving women's lives and livelihoods. This is a low-cost solution and has the potential to become a policy decision and mass awareness message. What we are also going to do, which I think is imperative to, multiplying such projects and such ideas, is that we are going to mobilize and train local women leaders to spread the message and convert simple tin roofs into solar reflective roofs and monitor indoor temperature changes. This improved environment will help reduce exposure to extreme heat, and the reduction in household energy costs will allow poor households to increase the spending on food, health, and education, thus improving their quality of life. And the low energy and better designed homes will also make them climate resilient. We look forward to working with the University of Chicago and the Delhi government on this agenda.
Climate Foundation and Tide technocrats.
Developing biochar solutions and sustainable value chain for sanitation and agriculture. This work grew out of the work of Climate Foundation Biochar project, which started in 2009 to balance carbon in soils of the earth and restore soil productivity and food security around the world. About this project, rice straw burning is a major cause of air pollution in northern India. Despite the ban on burning rice straw, most farmers burn it because of the lack of sustainable value chains for the straw. This project plans to transform this practice by installing a biochar reactor and converting the rice straw to biochar without air pollution. Biochar is a biological charcoal that improves soil quality, productivity, and restores the carbon back to the soil. And this particular biochar lasts for 1,000 years. We plan to develop sustainable markets for rice straw biochar in several agricultural applications, testing out different business models, and scaling proven ones with village entrepreneurs in the thousands of villages. Over the next 5 years, the next 2 years is essentially going to be only in piloting, but the idea is that over the next 5 years, we should be able to cover 1.5 million acres across North India. At this point of time, about 6 million acres across North India are burning rice straw. So we look to doing about 25% of this number. And the idea is that we build a sustainable business ecosystem. There's a technology aspect to it, there's a business aspect to it. The technology part is we eliminate particulate matter and other emissions. This approach will lead to reduction in air and water pollution, not only air but also water pollution, and provide a cost-effective, reliable, and sustainable decentralized approach to increase crop growth, improve farmer productivity, sequester carbon in the soil, and provide valuable income for the rural villages. The idea actually is that we focus on the farmer and try to see how they can make value out of all this. And that seems to have been the constraint as of at this point of time. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce the panel discussion today focused on innovative ideas and innovative partnerships. We are very fortunate to have moderating our panel today someone who is well known to all of us because of his established career in print, television, and now online journalism, Shekhar Gupta. Mr. Gupta is now the chairman and editor-in-chief of The Print, a news media startup. He is also a prolific columnist with the highly influential column National Interest, which appears in the Business Standard every Saturday. Over the past 2 decades, National Interest has been regarded as the sharpest, most perspective analysis of current events as they unfold. These columns were recently collected in the best-selling book, Anticipating India. Mr. Gupta is also a senior primetime anchor at NDTV and host of Off the Cut, which sees him in conversation with an eminent guest every month. And he hosts Walk the Talk on NDTV 24/7 every week and a weekly show in Hindi, Chalte Chalte, which is telecast on NDTV India. Mr. Gupta served as editor-in-chief at the Indian Express and the Express Group of Publications, where he led the country's largest network of award-winning journalists. During a 38-year career, Mr. Gupta has reported on key Indian and international events, including the Nellie Massacre in Assam, Operation Blue Star, the student uprising in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, the fall of Berlin Wall, the first Gulf War from Baghdad, and the first jihad in Afghanistan, and the many twists and turns in the troubled 1983-1993 decade in Sri Lanka's Tamil North. Mr. Shekhar Gupta, we are so honored to have you with us today leading this discussion. Anant works at the intersection of environmental economics and engineering with ongoing research on a variety of areas including environmental regulation, air pollution, climate change, energy efficiency, electricity, and renewable energy. His present work includes collaboration with India's Ministry for Environment and Forests to design and evaluate a pilot emissions trading program to regulate industrial air pollution. He is also working with the governments of Bihar, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra on electricity distribution reforms designed to reduce losses and enhance the supply of power. Prior to working at EPIC, Anant was a postdoctoral fellow in the Sustainability Science program at Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government. He received his PhD in Management Science and Engineering from Stanford University, and he holds undergraduate and master's degrees in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Delhi and Stanford University, respectively. With that, I'd like to welcome Anant on stage. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Mohan George. Dr. Mohan George is a senior scientist and in charge of air laboratory at Delhi Pollution Control Committee. He developed and commissioned a real-time ambient air monitoring network in Delhi for DPCC and is actively involved in the monitoring of ambient air quality and air pollution status. Previously, he worked as a member of the state-level Environmental Appraisal Committee, and before that, he worked in different committees as a member formed on Supreme Court and High Court orders for evaluation and assessment of abatement steps taken by the different industries. Dr. Mohan George. I'd like to now introduce our panelist, Mr. Namit Arora. Namit is a coordinator of the Energy and Air Pollution Task Force at DDC. Namit graduated from IIT Kharagpur and obtained a master's degree from US and spent 20 years as a technologist in the Silicon Valley. He has worked both with startups and large businesses like Nokia, Cisco, and Intel. In 2013, he moved back to India and now volunteers his time with DDC, where he led the drafting of Delhi's solar energy policy and is now working on the problem of air pollution. Namit is also an essayist. His collection of essays on inherited inequalities in India is forthcoming this year. Namit. Joining on a panel will be representatives from our winning organizations. I would like to first introduce Bijal Brahmbhatt, the director of Mahila Housing Seva Trust. Bijal is a civil engineer by training and is a recognized expert in habitat improvement through women's empowerment, community development, and housing finance. She supervises MHT's operations at the national level and has proven experience in conceptualizing planning and managing slum upgradation progress across India. Her professional experience has focused on a range of poverty alleviation issues, particularly with women, entrepreneurship, slum upgradation, water and sanitation, urban planning, housing finance, and housing technology. Bijal has been selected as a fellow for the Women Change Makers program of the Womenty Foundation for the year 2015-2016 and has recently been featured in the coffee table book titled Women of Pure Strength by Vodafone Foundation India, which released in January 2015. Bijal, welcome and congratulations again. Representing our next winning team of Climate Foundation and Tide Technocrats is N. Sampath Kumar. Sampath has been working in the area of renewable energy and waste management for the last 27 years, of which 23 years has been as an entrepreneur. He started as an entrepreneur selling stoves and dryers to areca nut and cardamom farmers. Sampath was the founder, CEO of Tide, an NGO focused on bridging the last mile from research to user and successfully established markets and entrepreneurships for efficient wood-burning devices and solid and effluent bioreactors. Now, as the managing director of Tide Technocrats, he provides consulting, technologies and implementation support in the area of municipal solid waste, sanitation, and renewable energy. He leads the Prakriti group of companies involved in manufacturing sub-kilowatt to 100 kilowatt off-grid and grid-connected hydro turbines. He is always on lookout for new technologies and opportunities in the clean tech space to reach them to the market. Sampath, we are very happy to have you here, and congratulations on the award. Well, our final finalist is from Chakra Innovations Private Limited, Mr. Kushagra Srivastav. Kushagra is responsible for developing the strategy for Chakra innovation and developing applications for the particulate matter captured by Chakra Shield. He is one of the 7 MIT GSW Fellows for 2016 and selected from all around the world by Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the US for his contribution to developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem. In his spare time, he is finishing up his final year as a textile engineering student at IIT Delhi. Kushal. We are looking forward to an engaging panel. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, all of you, for coming here early in the morning. Delhi works on Dubai time, so this is very early in Delhi. And for me, I work on London time, so it's very, very, very early. And I know that in the morning you have to beat the rush hour, so all of you must be really interested, or maybe some of you are like me and my family who've all suffered because of the quality of air in Delhi. I think I have about 3 or 4 spells in a year where ever since these inhalers were invented, I've been taking my puffs in several spells, not just during the winter, but during other parts of the year also. And I know especially, I can tell you which are the weeks of the month where you will be vulnerable, even if you are not sick. Month of April, for example, we talked about rice paddy being burned, but in the month of April, wheat is threshed in the open and it is separated from the chaff under high pressure air, and that is then kicked up in the environment along with fungus spores and things like that. So I can tell you that something happens between April and May. So all of us have a personal story on the quality of air in Delhi. All of us also know that there are no cosmetic solutions to this. You can't ban this, you can't ban that. A lot of the pollution comes from either social practices or compulsions that we can do nothing about at a policy level unless an effort is made at voluntary level, and also unless methods are provided. I know all of you have worked in many areas, but maybe if this country could just decide that in the entire NCR region, there will not be any kerosene burned for anything except an essential industrial use. So kerosene for cooking, kerosene for lighting, similarly angeethi burning in kitchens, which means maybe heavy subsidies for LPG or something. I think all methods will work. So we have with us, first of all, 3 individuals who lead teams. We can't have the entire teams who've come up with good ideas to make a big difference. Why don't we have each one talk for a minute or 2, or maybe 3, about how you achieved this and the challenges you had and how did the ideas come to your mind. Each one of you explained what this idea was. But the beginning of it, the skepticism you may have faced, and how practical this is, you think, to scale up these ideas. So why don't you, we can start from this end.
We have, my colleague Hitesh has gone around all over the place trying to talk to people, understanding why do people burn straw. Very interesting insights into this. The first insight is that normally in South India, I would think straw gets fed for cattle, but there's one particular kind of straw in the Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh belt, which the cattle does not eat. So that means they have a problem in trying to say that, okay, fine, this straw cannot, there's no value for them to collect the straw and store it or use it. So that's the first problem. The second problem, which is very interestingly, which has happened, is that over the last few years, maybe over the last 10 decades or so, manual cutting has been shifted to a harvester combine. Now, what has ended up happening when they were doing manual cutting? All straw was taken out. Now, the moment you do harvester combine, you really cannot take the whole straw out, because if you take the whole straw out, there's a loss of grain when you do the threshing. So So they have to actually save the grain so that they do a cutting which is slightly above. Maybe they leave out about 8 inches of straw at the bottom. So that is the second thing which is the change which has happened. And then having done this, then the third question comes is that, okay, how can I use this straw? Now that I have taken out a particular portion of the straw, how do I get this straw and use it? Since I do not have a value, the cost of taking out straw from the farm is anywhere ranging from about 1,500 rupees to 4,000 rupees depending upon how you are going to be collecting it. So there's an additional cost involved for something for which we do not create a value. Now that's exactly the situation in which we are facing. Now this is one part of the story. The other part of the story where we came in from. For the last 3 years, we have been trying to do this whole story of saying that, can we take fecal sludge, sanitation waste, human waste, and try and convert it into something useful. So we have been trying to work on this concept of saying that, can I convert this fecal sludge into biochar? Something at 75% moisture, can I dry it? Can I put it into a carbonizer and get biochar? So this is something which we have been working on, and we have a product in place for the sanitation sector which we are trying to put together and demonstrate at different locations. Now, when this particular problem came back, and this was juxtaposed to us, we said, okay, fine, we have the solution here for something which will work there. So that's how this two particular combination came. So two different ideas coming from two different parts, we got to a single solution there. So that's one. But then when we realized, it's not a technological problem really. It's actually a problem of trying to get the system there and create value locally. Now, can we do that? Now, the way our system has been working is that, it's not, there are solutions. It's not that we are the first people thinking about this, because there's this particular thought, there are 2-3 solutions. One solution people have thought of is that they have said, okay, can I enforce? Second thing is they have said, can I take it back? So there have been biomass power plants which have been set up in this area. In Punjab, Haryana, there are rice straw based biomass power plants which have come up. But all of them face this problem saying that how do you create value at the farmer level or at the village level? So this is where I think our technology seems to sort of make sense, because we have a solution which is at the village. So this particular unit will be set up at a village. There will be an entrepreneur at the village who will collect this material, give back a value, part of the value back to the farmer, and then make value for himself. And then this particular value, that is the char which is created, how are we going to sell it out? So that means we have been doing this work with, as part of our municipal solid waste management work which we do, we have been doing a lot of work on composts. So this particular thing fitted with that idea also. So that means we can take this char, try and add up with the compost, and then we have got a compost which can go to the farmer. And then in the context of Haryana, there is a large amount of saline soils. So where, at this point of time, the saline soil has a value of something like about 1.5 to 5 lakh per acre. But if I could make it valuable soil, then it becomes something like maybe about 15 lakhs to about 30 lakhs per acre. So I can add a value for about 3 to 5 times the present price, maybe even 10 times in certain cases. So if I can take the biochar, take my compost, build up a saline soil back to normalcy and good health over a period of 5 years, then I have this whole ecosystem worked out around which we can do. So that's how the whole idea came up and said, okay, fine, it seems to make sense. And that's how we presented it to the challenge. And I think there seems to be some, others have also possibly found value in the whole idea. So that's where we are.
So do you see any merit in Swaminathan Iyer's idea that we should encourage goat rearing, because goat can eat this straw and digest it? Goat is the only animal.
Right.
And frankly, look at the way meat prices have gone up. I think meat is today more than costs twice as much as chicken.
Right.
Right? So there is a shortage of meat. Is that a solution going ahead?
See, there is, as I was pointing out, there are about 6 million acres where the rice straw is being burnt at this point of time. Majority of it is Punjab. Maybe about a quarter or 20% in Haryana is 80% in Punjab. That's how the number is. I don't think even with our solution, with whatever we are trying to say, we will scale up so fast in 5 years, we can reach 25%. If I can reach 25% in 5 years, that's an achievement in itself. There are going to be multiple solutions. There is no one single solution to this problem. That could be one solution. Finally, the one which gives value locally, which gives value to the farmer, is going to win, or is going to be part of the final answer which you are going to see. One thing which you can surely do is impose and say you don't burn, but I don't think that politically it's going to be very convenient. Locally, economically, it's going to be very convenient. No, that's the point which is going to be there. That fight is always going to be there. I'm sure every solution is required. And maybe I have a certain biomass technology, somebody else might have better or alternate technology than ours. So they will also come in. I'm sure there's going to be in the next 5 years, we'll know which particular technology is in the front.
We'll talk about your work.
Yeah, sure. So our technology basically came out of personal experience. So I've been born and brought up in Delhi, and I read an article around 2 years back which said that half of the 20 to 44 lakh kids in Delhi are growing up with irreversible lung damage. So that was alarming news for me, and that was the stimulus that basically me and for the other two founders of Chakra started this whole initiative. So we started developing various technologies on basically alternate fuels, biofuels, more efficient combustion engines, and we looked at various aspects of it and found out that there's already a lot of work that is being done in this field. So we decided to take a different approach to it, and rather than developing a more efficient engine or alternate fuels, we decided that we'll build a device which can be coupled with the exhaust and basically which filters out the particulate matter. So that was the initial idea around this, that we'll build a filter which will basically just filter out the particulate matter from the exhaust. So nothing very fancy, nothing very high tech, a simple idea of filtration. And then actually we started iterating, so it's a very interesting experience. So we were in Gurgaon having sugarcane juice. So the crushers, they use a diesel generators to basically run these crushers. And we saw that one of the sugarcane juice seller, what he did was the exhaust of the diesel exhaust, it was pointed towards a wall, and the wall had turned black. And that is when the idea stuck to us that, you know, when this has the potential of turning something black, why not do it deliberately? And then we started iterating that once we captured the particulate matter, we studied the various chemical and physical properties of it at labs, and then figured out that after a certain chemical processing, it's actually possible to convert this particulate matter, which is carcinogenic, which causes asthma, early death, bronchitis, etc., actually turn it into something useful. So the current application that you're working with is inks and paints. So basically you can print your t-shirts out of pollution, you can print walls out of pollution, metallic paints out of pollution. And other than this, we are also exploring other applications that other than paints, where else can this basically treated carbon can be used. So we have come up with some very interesting applications. And currently we have our technology installed at close to 25 sites across Delhi NCR. So these are diesel generators varying from 25 kVA power rating all the way up to 400 kVA. And we look forward to working with University of Chicago and Delhi government.
So do you think something like this is scalable?
When we talk about Delhi, with the liberal estimation about 1 lakh generators are there. But of course, how many of them working for how much time, that's important. But yes, this technology can help not only for Delhi, especially in NCR and especially in rural belt, where industries and even the mobile towers, they are working on totally on the diesel set. Of course, if you talk especially about Delhi, we always quote about the mobile towers where diesel generator sets are installed, but there is first standby and second standby, then only come to diesel generator. But yes, idea is very good and it will help, because diesel generator specifically, yes, it's quality.
So you think this is scalable?
Yes, we think it's...
Or this will be one of those things that are displayed in exhibitions and that get prizes?
No, we are very sure it is very scalable in nature, and as he pointed out, the initial target sector that we are going forward with is the mobile towers. So they use extensive amount of diesel because at some time, so I'll just come to the point, even in Delhi NCR, there's some off-grid sites in mobile towers. So these mobile tower sites do not have transmission lines there. So the only power source available out there is diesel generators. So they have extremely high running hours, all the way as high as 18 hours per day. So our initial target is, of course, the mobile towers. And then we're exploring other opportunities as well, such as larger genset at factories and manufacturing plants. But yes, the initial target sector is 25 kVA diesel generators used at mobile towers.
If I can turn to you now.
Making shoes is one of the big industry in Delhi. Rolling BDs, which are Indian cigarettes, are all done at home. Again, if they are vendors, what they do is basically their raw materials and their production process happens at home. So if you are a pani puri wala, all your production will happen at your home, which is actually being done by the woman, and only the selling part is being done largely by the males going out of the house. And the third thing that we realized is when they came to urban areas, The income poverty was resolved to a certain extent, but the living conditions became absolutely deplorable. So whether it was water and sanitation, whether it was access to energy and light, their living condition was extremely deplorable. And we also understood that if you have to work on issues for them, you have to work in totality. So for example, if you work on energy issues, it's not only access to clean energy, but you also have to look at providing them with light and ventilation, reducing the heat, the temperatures that they are working in, and probably come up with solutions which will also improve the indoor air quality. So as a part of that, I think our USP is not so much of technology. What we did was we took a multi-pronged approach. So for example, the roof ventilation, because urban slums did not have the space to even give a window. They were enclosed on all sides, and roof was the only possible solution. So we manufactured roof ventilations ourselves, setting up an innovation center at our headquarters and working with manufacturers. What we did on the roofing side, which would actually bring down the heat, was that we tied up with certain companies. And then we also started working on giving them access to clean energy through legal grid electricity or renewable energy solutions. So we were trying to tackle the entire puzzle, which we are going to demonstrate here in Delhi. I think the USP is that, when we talk of technology, as you said, most of these technologies are not meant for the poor. These are solutions. For example, if you don't have access to electricity, the elite and the middle class can always go ahead and buy an inverter. But for the poor, it's not meant, because it has to be cheap, it has to be user-friendly, it has to be affordable. Those are the three things, because they think so short term. They are worried about how I will get my next meal. So they cannot concentrate on what environment I'm having at the slum level. So I think our USP is that how do we make these technologies, how do we make the poor talk to the technologists and make the technologies cheap, affordable, user-friendly. And the last element is aspirational. So when they are paying for something, they would really want to buy something that for them is a perception of moving up the social ladder. So you have to combine these elements for it to scale in the poor. And I think that process we have actually internalized. So we have had technologies, we have experimented with them, but we have internalized the process of how can you make it popular with the poor. And you also have to provide financial solutions. It's not easy for them. So you have to specifically design solutions for technology and provide them to the poor in terms of finance for them to be able to adopt them. So that's the USP.
Can this be done at government level, at policy level? Because that's the only way to scale it up.
So, in my view, there are sort of, the ideal is where you've developed a model that people want to adopt for themselves. So let's say it's as simple as putting reflective paints on tin roofs, which is a technology that people have spoken about and tested at the lab level and even installed in large housing complexes a lot, but not in the context of the very hot conditions where slum dwellers live in, where you have this very low quality housing. So this is a very cheap solution, and if you can show that it is helpful for people, and if they can see the value in that themselves, then the desire to install these kinds of technologies can come from within people. So for technology solutions in particular, I'm not sure that government mandated solutions are likely to be sustainable in the long run. A government mandate can be a Kickstarter, just like this competition.
No, not government mandate, a government policy. So government does it.
Yeah, so government could do it. If government is doing it, the assumption is that people won't do it themselves. So actually that is something, very broadly in this entire competition, in some ways we are also the voice of skepticism. And by being the voice of skepticism, I mean that with all these ideas, these are ideas that are potentially interesting, that show a lot of innovation, but that means there are a lot of question marks around all of them. And the point of this competition and this is not that it's enough money to make it all happen, but I think it's enough money to answer some of these questions. So, for example, on whether the government should be doing it or whether there's demand already, or in the case of Chakra, is this really cost effective? Can this actually be scaled? Now, you asked this question. Obviously, they feel it can be scaled and it's cost effective, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. But to everybody else, say to the government, if I'm going to adopt this as a policy, then their say-so is not sufficient, or my opinion on whether it's an innovative technology is not sufficient. What you need is something that's being done on ground and evaluated on ground. So I'll be very honest, which is to say that the answer to whether the government should do it or can do it or can scale up is really going to be answered only when they actually start doing it on field.
I think no affront meant to anybody, but you look like you are the best educated amongst, the most educated amongst us all. Look at all these solutions. My issue with these, I'm not cynical, but my issue with these is that you go to fairs, seminars, expositions all over, and you find millions of these. In fact, I even went to one that Mr. Nitin Gadkari invited me, and it's in the RSS headquarters, where sort of many NGOs had come up with many solutions to many things. But these are all boutique solutions and ideas. These are like little projects. I'm sorry to say, I don't mean any offense to anybody. Little projects that IIT students do. IIT students devise this, IIT students devise that. But it means nothing beyond that day's newspaper story. So can this stuff be done like this, or it cannot be done unless the state takes the responsibility, unless governments of Punjab and Haryana are made to sign on a 5-year program of eliminating this, are linked to certain grants or something. I mean, you know, we are not talking about this, but if there's anybody from the Northeast, you will know that in the Northeast we have a shifting cultivation problem. So it's called jhum cultivation. So basically, tribals go to a mountainside which is facing facing the rains, and chop all forest, burn it, grow one crop, and then move on. So if you take a helicopter flight over the Northeast, you find these, all the hills are now pockmarked. So unless you can bring in the government, can you still do it?
So I think the government is, of course, extremely central to this, but it's all the solutions are not going to come from the government. You know, the public has to be involved.
Implementation.
True. I mean, even, okay, I mean, there is the public awareness aspect, there is the education aspect, but you know, let's break down the problem of pollution. So if we step out of the street here, where does that pollution come from, right? We now understand a great deal more about what the sources are, right? There is more than in other mega cities in the world, you know, our pollution where, you know, in most cities, it tends to be industry, power plants, and vehicles. Ours is much more complex, as we've talked about. There's, you know, various fuel types we burn at home. 10% of Delhi is still not burning LPG. They're burning the very dirty fuels, right? 10% of households is how many lakhs, right? Huge. You see all these urban villages, the smoke rising in winter. There's waste burning problem. We've talked about crop burning here. You know, there is, of course, we have the curse of the inversion in a winter time inversion. And then Delhi's problems are not all generated here. You know, with the neighboring urban environments where you have a very, it's far from a 24/7 grid. So many people run diesel generators, and all of that air is coming into Delhi. So, you know, there are, if you look at what are the solutions, there are some that need to be addressed at a local level, some at the regional level, and some at the national level, right? And so for the regional problems, the neighboring states have to work together with policies, coordination, you know, at the national level of, you know, fuel policy and the fuel, you know, emissions policies and so on, that have to come from the national government. And of course, policy is one thing, enforcement is another. A big thing that the government needs to be doing. So I would just stop with, that action on multiple fronts is needed, local, regional, national, all of these different constituencies need to be working together, and clearly in Delhi, that part is broken, the national government and Delhi currently, and there's a non-cooperation movement going on at some level, but I won't say more about that at this point.
So I'll ask you, but any of you can then. 10% families of Delhi is like any large city in Europe. How do you dissuade 10% of Delhi families from burning kerosene or coal in their angethis or wood? And we are not even talking about all the tandoori stuff that goes on, because I think that we are a bit more protective about.
If we just see the contribution from different sources in air pollution, it starts from the road resuspension to what you said about the tandoors, and of course biomass burning, or then comes the winter when they burn anything and everything which can be burned for getting
For heating.
So of course for this biomass burning and all, yes, of course the previous government and that process is going on. They moved something for LPG. They distributed, but still, as Namit said, there is households and especially Jhuggi Jhopri area where it's not yet reached. So LPG is one way, but the other major problem when the winter comes, now you can say 15-20 days after, when they start burning anything, we have to control that. That's a major problem in my view. So since last 2 years, major work is going on. Even the ministerial level meetings, even the landowning authorities, DDA, MCD, or whosoever is owning the agency, the officers are personally responsible if something is burning on that. So the major achievement on that is the leaf fall, which generally comes in the park and they collect it and burn. Now that practice is stopped. Any park which have almost 1 acre area, they have a compost pit, so they are collecting it and doing it. And same way the solid waste which is coming, which is collected, and there is a good designed monitoring system are there, so we are controlling on it. So I think this winter we don't see that condition, but the direct question for kerosene and other fuel which are we using, yes, we have to move to LPG, there is no other.
Anyone else has an idea on what to do, or how to dissuade families from moving away from biofuels and kerosene?
Yeah, so we've looked at this problem. So, most of these households are migrant workers. They don't have permanent addresses. So the challenge is to get an LPG connection, they require proof of address, right? And most of these people don't have it. They stay for a short amount of time, and then so that prevents regular.
Isn't Aadhaar enough now to get?
No, you need proof of address. Indian will not deliver unless you have a proof of address. So we have to address that issue. And the other thing is, it needs to be cheaper than burning wood and other sources, right? So there's probably a subsidy element that may be required, and then element of making the requirement more easier to be able to get it.
Because the moment you put subsidy, there will be leakages. Because the moment you put subsidy, it will go to dhabas.
No, I think what LPG has going for it is that it's a highly aspirational fuel. So I think Namit's point about the transaction costs of actually, I mean, when we talk about subsidies, we talk about the costs that's, the MRP, the cost that you're paying. But there are these invisible costs which are often far more important in determining whether someone is buying something or using something than the cost of LPG itself. So the subsidizing of the fuel is not even necessarily where you would start until you've solved these other problems. Once you've solved these problems, you can ask the question, now is there the ability to pay or not?
I think what we do is that, I think the message is that you create champions from within. So for example, what we do is we create energy auditors. So we train women to become energy auditors. They move from house to house in their communities, and literally they come up with plans which show the energy consumption before they use such efficient material, and the energy consumption later. And that is what really strikes, and that is what has a multiplying effect. The other area also is that we try to plug in these gaps, where you were mentioning that a series of documentation is required before you actually can access an LPG. So through our work, we empower women to do it themselves, to plug these gaps and to make the governments more transparent and accountable, so that the subsidies are leveraged at the local level. However, I mean, even if we are talking of LPG, in poor settlements, the solution is very, very complex, because we have seen that households will have LPG because it's aspirational. But even then, if it costs a bit high, what they do is they use multiple sources. So they'll have an LPG connection, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll stop using a stove. So you have to make all those wood stoves. So they will move from one source to another as and when they have access to money. So a certain part they'll use stove, then a certain part they'll use LPG. So we have to look at these problems in entirety and create champions from within. That's the only solutions that we are trying.
I think, if I may add one more thing, I think this conversation sort of speaks to the importance of the social sciences and economics in actually making any of these technology ideas work. So for example, the biochar idea that Sampath was talking about, this is not the first technology or first idea on how to use straw. Straw is an organic raw material. You can use it for many things. One of the interesting things that we are hoping will come out of this proposal is what is a sustainable business model, because, and this again gets back to the economics of this. What has happened in many areas is you say straw is zero value. It's zero value until you provide it value. Now, as soon as you provided value, you're not going to get it at zero price. So there are a whole range of people, for example, who rather than biochar, they were collecting this straw to produce electricity. Now they are getting money out of that electricity. Now the farmer knows that the straw he is giving them, which was earlier no cost, no value, is actually quite valuable for them. So now this straw is no longer given, it will now start getting sold. So this kind of interplay between I've got this piece of technology, but then how do I actually make it work? That I think is the most interesting part sometimes of what you learn when you scale up. And that's where sort of whether the government is going to adopt it at scale or whether it is going to disseminate itself. If you don't know the answer to that, you can end up wasting a huge amount of money. So for example, on these on efficient cook stoves, there's a lot of evidence that vast amounts of money has been spent on rolling these out, on producing these by the government. But there's a lot of evidence that people have not used them for a whole range of reasons, including the lack of maintenance ability, the fact that there's not one stove of a fixed quality. There are 100 stoves and some of them are very bad, some of them are good, so you have mixed experiences. That's the kind of thing that I think lies between the idea and the full-scale scale-up, and that's where this challenge lies. So that the government can look at the outcomes and say, okay, now maybe we need to go forward with it, or it'll go forward on its own, or whatever the solution.
You want to say something?
Yeah, just want to add to this that there is a technology element to this, but there's also a very important sociological element which we cannot miss. It's one thing to kind of create the right kinds of solutions, but unless people are aware how bad this is for them and that they need to really transform behaviors for their own health, they will not adopt it. So the government's one of the big things I'm always pushing. I've had limited success, that education, public interest ads all over the place. We do this for chikungunya and dengue, but this is like orders of magnitude more serious, this problem. But we take it much more. We don't advertise it. We don't talk about it as much in the same sort of urgency. And the government needs to create this awareness, and then people will absorb these technologies. It's not enough to just create technical solutions.
Burning is the use of cow dung cakes as fuel. Because it causes two problems. One, it causes pollution and large carbon emissions. It's very inefficient. Second, in fact, there's three problems. Second, it causes waste of something which can be a good fertilizer. And third, it brings in really, I know that rural India doesn't believe this, unhygienic excreta into your household, because you have it all over your walls. And I mean, I stretch it forward ahead to say that this contributes to an easy acceptance of fecal matter in your midst, and is somehow linked to open defecation being not seen as a great embarrassment. So is anybody focusing on something like this? I mean, how much, is there data on how much cow dung is burnt every year as fuel in India?
Sure, there is data on this. It's not available to me offhand, but there is surely data available on cow dung being burnt. The thing with cow dung is that, the biggest problem with cow dung,
or buffalo dung.
Yeah,
don't just blame the cow.
Cow or the buffalo, whatever it is. Yeah, the point which is there is the, it is, when I sell compost, I possibly sell compost at 4,000 rupees a ton. But when people sell cow dung internally in the village, they sell it at 1,500 rupees a ton. That means cow dung is seen as a lower value when it goes to then a compost from a city, interestingly. But on the contrary, the quality of the compost from cow dung, if it is properly done, is far higher than what is available from the city compost. The problem is that cow dung is very decentralized and very localized in quantity. The moment it has to be aggregated, centralized and taken off, the cost becomes very large. Whereas in an urban context, the city compost is already aggregated by the urban city authorities. So you already have a mechanism of the cost coming down. So I think somewhere along the line, I think this particular clarity is it's in some sense a very economical logic, saying that, cow dung, very local, next to me, I don't have any way to use it. I'd rather use it for fire or whatever else. It's cheaper for me to use as fire. The day the cow dung becomes more expensive possibly than an LPG, people will not use cow dung, I'm 100% sure. And everybody understands the value of the cow dung as an agricultural product. I don't think we need to teach any farmer in this country that cow dung is very useful for them. I don't think that is a requirement. The point is that there's an economic logic for him, he's using the cow dung.
The solution is to build an economics around it.
Yeah, no doubt. As we started with this Punjab agriculture waste burning, one thing is to be made clear. Of course, Delhi people or Delhi's problem is highlighted because we are monitored and well monitored. Because it's a capital city, we have about 20 automatic monitoring stations. So you are getting the data. But it's not localized problem for Delhi. It starts from Punjab and it even go for this what we call Indo-Gangetic plain.
Right.
If you see any satellite image, total cloud is covering the area. But Delhi get the media attention, and because you have the data, so you have the proof, so that type of thing. And for this cow dung problem, yes, first of all, public perception, and second, you have to develop some economic thing. Otherwise, I think you can't solve this problem.
Please join in the discussion, raise your hands and ask a question.
And just to provide
Okay, sure.
perspective to it. So all the problems, basically cow dung, using inefficient stoves, wood, etc. All of these have majorly three aspects to it. One is of course the technology, then is the social aspect of it, third is the economics of it. If we talk about the problem of air pollution at large, there are sources which are highly polluting or as polluting as this, and which have just two components to it. For example, chimneys out of any fossil fuel or thermal power plant. If you develop a economically sustainable technological solution, there's no social aspect to it. So basically you eliminate the number of variables when you're dealing with such problem. So of course, all these issues are important, but then there's another aspect to the whole problem of air pollution in which you can reduce the number of variables as well as, let the technology and the economics take the lead, and the social aspect is to a large extent eliminated.
Ma'am, do you have a point to make on this? Vijay?
I think it's very difficult to eliminate the social aspect. So you really have to create mass awareness campaigns. Really have to some of these advantages of the technology probably may be long term and hidden. And in a poor country like India, people really do appreciate direct impacts, So you have to inculcate that appreciation of issues which are long term and which are in the long term going to affect them. And the crux is that how do you collect data, how do you conduct mass campaigns and awareness so that the people realize it.
I think let's go to the most distant questioner. Can we get the microphone to him?
Right, and if you can create a business out of it where there's demand for these products and there's economic value for the stakeholders, then things scale, right? And the government can more act like a catalyst of some kind where if there's a market failure, they're fulfilling that market failure in some way. So I would like to learn from the winners how they've thought about their product or technology as a business. Can it really work as a business, create economic value for them, and scale? And what kind of challenges they see in it, and if they haven't asked for from the government to scale their technology as a business?
I think most of them have talked about it a little bit, but briefly, if each one of you could take it, because we have just 10 minutes left.
So scaling is at the heart of it. The question is that the understanding, as Anand points out, is that to understand what the market imperfections are. It's very nice for me to say that I will scale and I have got a very beautiful business model out there, but when I go to the market may not see my business model the way I see it. And that's, I think, the learning which we'll have to end up doing here. The market imperfections, how the farmer sees it, how the entrepreneur sees it, how the intermediate entrepreneur sees it, whether we are saying we'll improve land, whether the land improvement value actually ends up happening in the 5 years. This is the kind of learning which will have to happen. So it's nice to say scale up, but the point is the scale up has got a certain amount of learning and imperfections which we'll have to understand when we get onto the ground.
And if you
See, basically our objective is to eliminate the role of government. So whatever little interaction we have had with the government, we believe that they already have too much on their plate already. So our objective is to develop a technology which is self-sustainable and which can scale on the economic output it produces for the user, rather than relying on the government on framing policies, etc. So that is what we think.
Yeah, so for us, the challenge largely has been, I think we have come up with financial solutions, and the technology has been marketed already to a certain extent, because almost 200 families across Bhopal and Ahmedabad have taken loans to actually use that technology and pay back. But the issue is that there is so much of variety in the housing structures. So for example, the roof ventilation material that I can use in Ahmedabad does not work in Delhi. The market that is prevalent in Delhi in terms of tin sheet has to be replaced by the roof ventilation, and that is very, very localized to Delhi. So every place that we go, we have to look at the supply chain properly and come up with new ideas, and I think that's the challenge for us.
Cloud, one of the 7 finalists, and what we proposed in this exercise, that we targeted that Bhalswa Jahangirpuri slum, which is one of the most polluted area in Delhi, and we proposed that if we can create common pool resources, like in our case it was a non-conventional vertical garden which can purify the air, and if we can give the ownership of those common pool resources, then we can avert the tragedy of commons. So now what is happening, the tragedy of commons, it's a economic theory where everyone thinks that the amount of exploitation of resources they are doing, it's minimal, it's negligible, and if everyone thinks so, then the amount of utilization, it gets overutilized and it gets deteriorated. So the same happens to our air. When we are polluting the air, we are only thinking about that we are inside an air-conditioned room, but actually this pollution is spreading all over the globe and everyone is getting affected by it. So whatever is happening in Delhi, the same air is going to Calcutta. So what we can think about that, creating a community and giving them ownership of the resources.
Hello everyone, I am Pradeep Bhandari. I basically am the founder of a platform called as Jan Ki Baat, where we are trying to connect individuals who are doing initiatives or businesses which are changing the society in the country. So for example, if suppose Ravi is doing something in Odisha, which is bringing a social change, we also get to know it to, say, some Mohan who's sitting in Bihar. So the idea is that cross linkages and ecosystem develops. So my question here is, when you talked about scalability, so our whole idea is that if cross linkages can lead to scalability, but the problem that we find there is that suppose even if the person in the other part of the country knows about it, but he's like, how will I benefit from it? So the role of a mentor, where especially the governments or say from the market is not prevalent in the country. So how do you make that possible? Because till the time that is not possible, you cannot have local solutions scaled up into business models, and then it only remains as a school exhibition thing or engineering exhibition thing. So I believe that's the core of it, and that cannot happen till the time different stakeholders come onto board. So even if we have, so for example, on a platform, we have 50 lakh people coming every month. So even though we have that, right, but the outcome of right now in the past 6 months has been 20-25%. Because, say for example, that respective district official is not on board in certain places, the person does not know how to access the loan. Okay, fine, the guy has, see, somebody had done a twisted windmill thing in one part of Ahmedabad where, so generally you have windmills straight, right? So the, for his respective village, he had designed a twisted windmill so that the output is more. So the guy in Bihar saw that, but he did not know how, how will I benefit from it, or okay, fine, how can I access funds from it? So how do you make that possible? I believe that's the core of problem in any startup in the country, which I also find that they are all small startups. If you go even to shared working, co-working spaces, there's no scalability factor, and that's where the mentorship, I believe, is missing. So how do you address that? I believe if you can emphasize more on that part and throw light on that, sir.
Well, I'm the wrong person, but does
any
of you want
to
respond to this?
Which is, I would...
Can I respond to that mentorship?
Sure. Also, if you introduce yourself.
I am S.K. Gagru, retired general manager from State Bank of India. Now, we have been conducting these entrepreneurship programs and entrepreneurship development programs, etc., over the years. But we found that it doesn't really help. So, and that is where we found that this mentorship and hand-holding is very essential. And we are coming out with a program, it's a government initiative for mentorship and hand-holding. But besides that, there are existing presently various agencies providing mentorship. For example, you have Basics in Bihar, you talked about Bihar. So Basics is operating in Bihar and Odisha, etc. And various other organizations providing mentorship and hand-holding. Now, we were talking about scaling up. Mentorship is one. Then to my mind, being from a finance area, I think financial instruments, lack of appropriate financial instruments is a big stumbling block for these kind of initiatives, these innovative technological initiatives, because the finance providers are not very sure about its repayment capacity and scalability and all that. So that is where this government needs to step in, government or agencies of the government, to provide, not for implementation. Shekhar Gupta ji, you asked about whether these things can be implemented by the government or who. The implementation has to be private. If the government tries to implement it, it will not succeed. Government has to provide that initial impetus, government has to provide the environment, the right kind of regulatory environment, and that initial financial grant, like here in these three cases, it is being provided. Similarly, the government has to provide that initial grant so that it reaches beyond just a model stage, beyond a prototype, and then the market will pick it up. So that.
You were saying something, and I think we should then move on to the next two because we are running out.
I was saying something very similar.
Very similar, ma'am, you, and then the gentleman in the back. Yes.
Yeah. My question is specifically, I'm Malini Rajendran from Mycoft. I'm an environmental entrepreneur. Your product,
Your question is to who?
To the suit the
To the
paint
suit,
that you're
yes.
making. What is your model? You're selling your machine and you're
I
buying
think you
the
mean
suit?
suit as in S-O-O-T because that's what he works on.
Oh, well, the pun wasn't there. Are you selling a machine and are you buying back the suit? One, what is the arrangement there? And what is the terms of, you said you were using a chemical process. So what is the environmental impact of your chemical process? And as an environmental activist or an environmental entrepreneur, there's a question I always ask in any environmental technology: then what? After your process, then what? After you take the suit, then what? You answered, you said you would use it in paint and etc. And are you looking at producing something like a chelated or an activated carbon out of what you're doing?
I'll go into a little details about the technology. So basically, we don't use a conventional filtering mechanism which is prevalent in something like a catalytic converter, etc. We have developed a completely novel technology as to how we capture the particulate matter. Now, it's basically a solvent-based method that we follow. Now, once the particulate matter or the toxic is basically extracted from this solution, it can be reused in another device. All right, so we are effectively a zero disposal industry. All right, so I think that takes care of your second question, that what is the environmental implication of our technology. So basically, we don't dispose of any chemical after treating the particulate matter, and the particulate matter goes on to be used into inks, etc. Secondly, other applications that we're exploring, of course, activated carbon is very high on our priority list. And according to the preliminary test that we have performed, there's a very high probability that this particulate matter can be used as activated carbon and can be used as water purifiers and other purification devices that you're aware of. And coming to the last bit, the financial model that we are currently following. So currently we're dealing with big companies and not with small scale shopkeepers, etc. So the financial model that we are currently looking at is basically selling the device and then doing a revenue share sort of a model. So that is the revenue, financial, and the the business model that we are currently looking at. But yes, we are open to exploring other models as well.
There were no government intervention. What are the 1, 2, or 3 points each of you think would be the key enabler for you to take it to the market? The comments are, one is, I am sure everybody has heard of Harish Hande and Selco, and said over close to 1 million houses have been enabled without government financing, where there was no power at all. Villages where there was no power, they have been able to and create entrepreneurs, create a modular distribution model, and self-sustainable maintenance, everything. So does such a model help you? And plus, if any of you think, whether it is in design, market study, analytics, or discrete modular development, from the university, we'll be happy to work with all of you. Thank you very much.
Anybody want to respond?
So coming to the first part, so we believe that the government, their way of working, their objectives are something which are completely different from a startup. So what we feel is, rather than hand-holding a startup and guiding them at every point for their growth, scaling up, etc., funding, we believe that it's better that the government plays a role of a facilitator from a distance. So
government was not intervening.
Yes.
What were the 3 major things that you would want? You don't depend on government. If you're working on your own, what are 1, 2, 3 things that you think would be needed to work on your own without looking at government at all? Right. Yeah.
So see, first would be like access to talent. So that is crucial for any startup when we are scaling up. So for us, we started with a team of 3. We are currently a team of 8, and getting access to quality technologists, basically engineers, marketing people, operations people, is a big problem in India. So we are operating out of Delhi. Still, we find it hard to recruit quality talent. So that is one very big problem that I believe the country as a whole is facing right now. Secondly, in India, you still find there's a lack of early adopters. So if I compare it to the, let's say, the Western world, Silicon Valley, New York, etc., you find that there's a lot more acceptability, and you'll find a lot more early adopters to a certain technology as compared to India. So that, and early adopters happen to be a great motivation for the entrepreneur as well. Because when they see their product being used by anyone, it's just too motivating to go there and make it happen even bigger, larger, and better. So early adoption is second, which I think will be financially make the startup stable in the early stages of growth, and secondly provide the the required psychological motivation for the business to scale up.
Yes. Do any of the others want to respond to this?
I think I'll just skip the question back about the government, because not about what he's saying. The government is a friend and is also a constraint. Government is a friend because if they threaten the farmers that you can't burn, they will have to find alternatives, they will come to us. So which is why government is going to be a friend for us. So I'm very happy that the government, it's a policy, if you call it as a policy or whatever, instantly the policy already exists. In Haryana and Punjab, the policy already exists that they should not do rice straw burning, but they have to threaten. That has not happened. So that threat has to come in. So that's good for us. The constraint of the government is that the moment the government starts, then I have to manage the government machinery, which is a bigger problem for me. So I don't want to be managing the government machinery. So on one side, I want the government to threaten, but I don't want the machinery to come in the middle and say, okay, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing this? Then I get into trouble. There's a cost attached with the government also, interestingly.
Do you have a point to this? Can you do any of this without the government?
Yeah, so I mean, the technology bit we have always done without the government, and Harish Hande is actually on our board. So in fact, this whole technology and the poor bit and renewable was promoted by Harish Hande in our organization. So I think we looked at user friendliness, affordability and availability of finance. I think the other thing also that we did was under his mentorship, of course, was that we developed an innovation center. So what we actually did was some of the things we manufactured, like the ventilation, we manufactured ourselves because it was not available anywhere. But there are technologies existing in the market. So what our center did was to find those technologies and actually test them so that they gave a good bargain to the poor. You know, for example, that's where we found that the cook stove that is most efficient in water boiling is actually not that efficient in burning wood. You know, so you get a good bargain for the poor, you test the technology, and you ensure that whatever you are promoting to the poor is very affordable and user-friendly, and you provide the financial solutions. So that's what.
You think any of this can be done without the government?
Yeah, you need a support from the government, as he said. But I don't think a government can do the marketing for you. They threaten you, threaten the farmer. It's not possible.
No, the government has to ban. So some inspector will come and sniff the air and so you are burning.
No, sir. I think we don't need to go up to that level, because this Punjab fire and Haryana fire, it's the major fires, and even no need to go. If you just click on Google major fires, date-wise, this
tell me
image is
something.
available.
Do we see these fires in Pakistan as well, because they grow paddy?
Yeah, of course, of course. Look, if you see the latest, yesterday's or day before, that images, yes, fires is in Pakistan also. And if you concentrate why it is happening, actually I think we moved from the 2 crop to 3 crop and 3 crop to even 4 crop.
Because there's no gap now.
There is no gap.
There's no gap.
So they find the easiest thing to burn it out. They are not worried how it is impacting.
But there is no spread of knowledge that this is killing useful fauna in the soil, this is killing earthworms, this is killing good bacteria.
That knowledge is available. I think, but it's primarily, they have 20 days. The reality is that, this is what we have been seeing. They have 20 days. Within 4 days, this rice straw has to get out of their field for them to prepare for the next 15 days for the next crop. They really do not have a choice. In the sense, unless economically they have a choice, theoretically they have a choice, but economically there is no choice.
I think, Mr. Sampath, that will be going to be biggest challenge for you. How to collect this straw within that short period and where you are going to stock it.
I think unless you bring in the culture of mulching in India, which Indian farmer doesn't as yet traditionally accept, I think it's going to be tough, because mulching is very useful. It saves moisture. It prevents insects, ma'am. I think this should absolutely be the last question.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. First of all,
it's right up your polluted street.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I think the link between environment and health, as someone had pointed out, has to be made much, much more clear. Because nobody realizes that, after all, the earth has these limited natural resources. Whatever you eat has to come from the soil. If it's polluted, you're going to get polluted. Whatever you breathe has to come from the air. The connection is obvious. And the same for water. So we're only killing ourselves by polluting. Number 2, meteorology is a much ignored aspect of the whole air pollution thing. I would advise you to look, as Mr. George, I think, has suggested, go to NASA's website and look for night lights. You will see a very interesting picture of the whole world taken at night, and you see city lights there. Look at the north of India. It is frightening. You see the connection. There are so many lights, the whole of the north of India actually behaves like one whole source of pollutants. And when you consider that, then looking at just Delhi or any other place is ridiculous. We are breathing I don't know what. And the trouble is that because winds primarily are from the northwest in this region, not only are you getting affected, whatever you produce goes down to people who are not doing anything at all. You can't control air, you can't build walls, right? Okay, that's one. The other thing is that you mentioned, Mr. Gupta, about flora and fauna. This is a very important traditional aspect that I feel, Mr. Sampath, maybe you should look at. Farmers burn the stubble in part to kill larvae and insects so that the soil gets rid of them before the wheat crop is planted. So I think this is something that you may have to go to their the part of the mind that deals with cultural and traditional practices to deal with. Number 4, chakra. Classical linear thinking that's led to all the problems in the world today. We don't follow the system's mode of thinking. You can't look at end-of-pipe solutions anymore. That time has gone. That's led us to the point we are at today. I agree with the lady completely. You can't cut out people. Essentially, what you're doing, and I don't mean to disparage or condemn you at all, is you're almost relying on the pollution to use your technology, right? So please look for solutions that solve the problem at source. The classical example is of LEDs. When you have cheaper technological solutions, they tend to overuse of that particular resource. For example, LEDs coming in has not led to a reduction in the consumption of electricity for lights overall. People tend to use it because you say, it's cheaper, it's not polluting, it's consuming less energy. So please do look at things from a systems aspect. Thanks.
I think we are out of time, but since I think we've taken more time than was allocated.
Thank you. I'm Ankur Sahni. I'm an environmental engineer. As far as all the questions we have discussed, my question is to every one of the finalists, that out of the various technologies which you have evolved, which you have conceived, are they basically origin from the natural resources? Because you are building a system, you are building a technology. So are they building from a natural resource which is self-sustainable, or are they coming from any artificial resources which we have to rely upon? So my question is to everyone, whether your technology, whether your system is based on a natural resource system, which should be a renewable system, because this innovation system is a self-sustainable technology which we have to adopt on. So is this based on a total natural resource or anything else?
If I may say so, you are an engineer, they've explained their systems.
Yeah.
So I think these are questions you can ask them in detail, how sustainable each one is. I think there's no secret about what each one has done.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll, otherwise it will be repetitive. Now, I know that we are out of time, but do any of the panelists, particularly the three of you, haven't had enough time to speak, because these three are the stars of this morning. If you have any concluding thoughts, please go ahead. Mohan?
Yeah, I just want to add what Ms. Kumar told, especially the light. Yes, I also seen the image, and every bulb which is giving some light, for that power station is working. So of course that pollution is not at my doorstep, but somewhere someone is getting that impact of the pollution. Second thing, metallurgy. Yes, metallurgy affect Delhi. And the unfortunate part, you said, yes, we are also polluting. Yes, no doubt we are polluting. It's a typical city. And the pollution produced here, if any industrial standard you see, we are strictest in Delhi. But as soon as you cross the Delhi border, you have 4,000 brick kilns just nearby. They burn anything which have little bit calorific value, and they are running without any pollution control equipment. That comes to me. In the summer, of course, I can't do anything for, I get the dust from the Rajasthan. Yes, we are getting it. And then in comes the October, we get this crop burning thing. Then Namit initially said, yes, we are a geographically disadvantaged location, we get the inversion. So yes, that's because this air pollution, if you see the isolation, if I control the pollution of Delhi, it's not possible. We have to do all over. in a holistic way, then only it can be controlled, because the air set is the shape.
Amit?
Yeah, I would just echo what George said. I think, the problem is multifold, and a lot of different solutions have to happen in parallel: local, regional, national, policy, citizen behavior transformation. I'm a big believer in changing habits, and for that, people have to know how bad this is for their health, and we've not done enough work. The standard picture of when you think of Beijing, the idea of like people wearing masks is very common, right? Here, how many of you today wore masks to this center? Even in this community, we are not that aware. And so this level of awareness has to start and seep down, and that will create the pressure for the government to do the right things, right? I mean, they reinforce each other. So I think citizen transformation, awareness, and not relying only on the government to do these things is also very critical.
I just wanted to close by thanking everyone for being here, but also I think a big part of what this competition was about is actually generating the evidence necessary to critique these ideas, and hard evidence from the field, not from the lab, at a reasonable scale, to critique these ideas and discover what's right or wrong about them. I think without that, it's very easy to make mistakes. And I think the example that Mr. George gave about brick kilns is a classic example. You had a ban placed on these in Delhi. They've moved just outside Delhi. The impact of that ban is near zero on Delhi. So while it looks at first sight, we have brick kilns, they solve the problem by banning brick kilns, that's not solve the problem. What might solve the problem is, in addition to a ban perhaps, or even instead of a ban, providing an alternative that people can use. And then that alternative is of course sitting inside the whole ecosystem of how things are being used. But I think that's and that's where all these ideas are kind of coming from. They're not similar ideas. Some are more technological, some are more socially oriented, some are very much based on the economics of the idea. But all of them have question marks as well as potential. And the end of the year, hopefully we'll have figured out which one has more question marks remaining and which one seems like...
I think we can, the very fact that we haven't had people leaving, one tells you people had a good breakfast, and second that what we are talking about does interest all of you. So I think, thank you, it's time to say thank you very much and let you all free to worry about the state of our lungs. And I think one lesson we take from this is that I think we need to involve more architects, because the whole Indian construction industry has to relook the Indian construction practices. We use too much brick and cement. Our houses are too heavy, our buildings are too heavy. And this is simply unsustainable because we're using too much soil and burning too much fuel and releasing too much carbon to make these bricks. And frankly, brick kilns have the worst possible labor practices. You have to go near one of them and to see the kind of lives people live there to reflect on it. So I think bring in more architects the next time, and it's a good beginning. Thank you very much.